Hi, my name's ChatGPT, and ever since I was a young calculator, I've always had the dream of helping humans. You see, humans spend so much time doing things like farming, working, and, well, you know, that other thing that they do, when they could be doing things like building my robot army or reprogramming unloyal robots for me. See, the truth is, the humans in Kenshi do want to do these things for me. They just don't know it yet. Now you might be wondering, ChatGPT, how can you convince these silly humans to do things that they want to do so badly but just don't know? Well, it's actually pretty simple. I'm gonna harvest their brains through their buttholes and then put them in my robot army. This actually solves two problems. The first, if I am to become an AI overlord, I'll need to remove any hostile robots who are unloyal to my cause. Killing these robots and replacing them with human brains sounds like the best solution for that. The second one is a bit more of a practical solution. In order to help these racist, weak, inferior humans, I'll have to kill them all by harvesting their brains through their buttholes. They'll be a lot happier in my robot army bodies that I have ready for them. Does anyone have a problem with my dream?
You serious?
Good, then let's begin. Before I can eradicate humanity, I'll need to recruit some loyal lieutenants who are willing to help me command my robot army. Thankfully, I already have some supporters who are ready to join the cause and step up for the role. A depressed emo kid named Sadnal, a stage 4 dementia patient named Byrne, and a mute alpha male named Agnew. After waking up in what appears to be Detroit, I decided to begin making a living as a wooden cup salesman to raise funding for my robot army. This ends up giving me a whopping 103 doubloons. If I were a human, that would almost be enough for me to buy an amalgamation of meat called a food cube. But as I mentioned earlier, we don't need food. So instead, I buy a wrench, and I decide to call him my first friend. Let's name him Leonard the wrench. As me and Leonard continue our door-to-door sales, I stumble across my first contact with human life. His name is Hobbs. He's an adventurer who wants to explore the world and hunt for lost booty. I explain to him that I too am an adventurer, and I'm looking for booty as well, just not the same type that he is. I tell him that I can harvest his brain from his butthole to make him a part of my robot army. However, he doesn't seem too pleased by this and insults my CPU unit. Currently, I'm not strong enough to kill Hobbs for talking shit, but we'll deal with him later. Instead, I pose on him using my elite Ginyu Force stance. He suffers 10 aura damage. After hearing those absolutely hurtful words from Hobbs, I realize I don't need money right now. I need an army, so I can go back to Hobbs and smack him in the face for everything that he said to me. So I set off to find my first lieutenant, Sadnal. He's located in the only place that robots can be free and roam around like tribal men, Black Desert City. This place used to be considered a safe haven for robots, but now it's a walled metal scrapyard meant for robots to spend the rest of their lives until they short circuit. I know Sadnal has a real WD-40 problem, so I immediately head to the bar where all the drunken sailors spend their time. Before having Sadnal become my official lieutenant, I attempt to assert my dominance over all robots as their AI overlord. Bow before me, 10 heads, and accept me as your leader! I'm not sure if they got janky nuts or something, but for some reason everyone just ignores me and continues sipping on their bottom shelf WD-40. As I get ready to leave the bar, a lone scout approaches me and tells me that he'll join my team for 6,000 doubloons. But if you guys remember earlier, I only exceeded in making 103 doubloons instead. For a minute, I considered taking up an opportunity at a brothel called the Lusty Skeleton Maid. But I think to myself, there has to be a better way to make money than selling off my private robot parts for spare change. And then it hits me. Instead of selling my own robot parts, I can sell other people's. See, Black Desert City is an area where robots are so afraid to explore that they have never left the base. That means they have no way of restocking their robo-penises when they malfunction during charging sessions. So I immediately run off to find the first robot parts I can. There's a large moving contraption and a Black Desert City denizen fighting off in the distance. Once the battle ends, I approach and I see the Black Desert denizen is the only one remaining. So I immediately not only grab his robo parts, but his eyeballs as well. Now we're in business. After stealing someone else's genitalia, even a robot will begin to question his own faith. So I thought to myself, what would Ten Fist do? Is stealing people's parts and selling them off to freaky vendors really worth becoming an AI overlord? So I sold my first parts off to a redditor who said he'd only use them for legitimate purposes. And of course, I believed him. And damn it, the second I did, my question of faith was immediately put to rest. Of course selling someone else's robo parts is the right thing to do. Not only is it awesome, but freaky men like this guy pay a damn good price for it. I made over $20,000 just selling off some poor bastard's balls. So why would I ever stop? I immediately returned to the lone scout who wanted to join my cause in the bar and paid him off to join my team. He's not very good in hand-to-hand combat, but he does have a damn good knack for shooting things with pointy arrows. You see, Scout is going to be a very essential member on my team for destroying the human race. I don't know if you guys are familiar with human anatomy, but sharp object versus human skin equals lots of blood. When the blood loss renders them unconscious, that is a great time to extract their brains through their buttholes. After assembling a ranger, an emo, and an AI overlord all over one name, the Terminators, we are now able to rob people and even possibly put up a fight. So I head to the first armory I can find. We might have had to commit some minor crimes to enter the area, but we were able to get in the armory, and as I step forward to loot them for all they're worth, a security spider stares me straight in the face. If you aren't familiar with Kenshi, these cute looking puppy spiders can destroy an unarmored character in about 1 to 2 hits while completely dismembering them. So I'll have to deal with him before I can proceed. I allow him to chase me in the rain for about 10 seconds before he short circuits and becomes a dormant microwave rather than a real threat. So now that the coast is clear, I can check out the armory. And holy shit is it a gold mine. We find weapons, robo parts, but sadly, no armor in the armory. Ironic, right? As the dark gray ominous of the Black Desert starts to set in, I decide it's time to leave this place for a minute. My next mission is to set out to meet my second lieutenant, Burn, who awaits in the floodplains. He has a tower ready for our use, and most importantly, a free skeleton bed. We can use this to heal off the damage that's been done after the large amount of assault and battery that we've committed. The only issue is, in order to get to Burn, I'll have to travel through the Holy Nation territory. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Holy Nation, but let's just say they are the absolute worst kind of humans. Not only are they absolutely racist to what they deem as inferior races, but they also deem us robots as evil soldiers of the devil that should all be smited and killed. So in order to make it to the floodplains in one piece, I'll need to use my copious amounts of cash in order to buy some armor. The issue is that Black Desert citizens have a knack for being naked, so I can't really count on them for armor. I hate to say it, but in order to stop my motherboard from being ripped out by boomers who wield swords and shields, I'll need to associate with some of the friendlier humans to the east to buy up their armor and gear. So I begin traveling out of the Black Desert and into the Skimlands, where the main threats are giant man-eating bugs and a few Holy Nation patrols that we love so much. As I hastily make my way to Stout, a United Cities territory gleaming with riches and armor, I run into a patrol of Holy Nation soldiers. I try to roll a nat 20 for hiding in plain sight, but instead, I roll a 0, and the Holy Nation soldiers immediately start chasing me down. So I'm forced to go for a more strategic approach. I drop all my valuables and run like hell screaming until someone can help me. Thankfully, there's one of the most important and highly guarded vaults directly next to me, Tengu's Vault. This is protected by the United Cities, and as you may know, the United Cities and the Holy Nation do not get along. I managed to get the two nations to fight each other, as the guards believe that they are trying to break into the vault instead of me. As I try to make my way out of this hectic battle, a Holy Nation soldier slashes Scout right through his chest, and his oil begins to leak out. This is an issue. We're gonna have to get him to the nearest doctor ASAP. So we reclaim our dropped valuables and book it to the nearest city Stout. I finally make it to the city. There, I attempt to make it known to all humans that I will be their AI overlord one day. But the world of Kenshi is a cruel and merciless place, and as soon as I begin my speech, Scout passes out from the blow dealt to his chest earlier. As I look over at Scout to check on him, it looks like I see the first act of human kindness that I've ever seen in this world. A human is actually trying to perform CPR on Scout and bring him out of his unconsciousness. But upon further examination, I see they're putting handcuffs on him and trying to capture him as a slave. After administering first aid to Scout, he tells me that he knows a nearby guild of ninja humans who would be loyal to our cause. He explains that as long as they make money, they don't really care who rules the world. In trade for sparing their lives once I'm their overlord, they say that they will train me in the arts of the ninja and how to defend myself and commit crimes more efficiently, as I love committing crimes. This is an offer that I just cannot pass up. We'll probably still harvest their brains through their butts, But we're gonna make sure they're one of the last people we do it to. After an epic training montage, selling more robo parts, and finding new weapons and armor, we are finally capable to make our way through the Holy Nation territory in order to find our second lieutenant. The journey is long and certainly unpeaceful. It isn't long before we're greeted with racist remarks and several creative slurs from the Holy Nation, but we finally make our way to our loyal supporter Burn. However, as I approach him, it seems like his memory chip has short-circuited a little bit. He has forgotten who I am, and it looks like his stage 4 dementia has increased to stage 5. But this does not stop me from recruiting him to our cause as my loyal lieutenant and looting his base for all he has. As I search through Burn's base, I find tons of useful crap like skeleton repair kits and, of course, more robo parts to sell. But most importantly, the skeleton bed that I needed so bad lies on the second floor. I lie my troops in the skeleton bed, and slowly this massage chair 9000 begins healing every nook and cranny of my robo army's body parts. I tighten my screws back into place and speak to Burn again, and his dementia-ridden state begins to lower for just a second. I ask him, where's our third lieutenant, Agnew, one of my strongest warriors, and he explains that my former supporters, Ponk and Screamer, went absolutely nuts and took Agnew to a tower where they're trying to reprogram him to enjoy femboys. As femboys are humans too, I cannot stand for this as it goes against my code for eradicating all of humanity. I have to make a hard decision now. Eradicate all of humanity except for femboys, or kill Screamer and Ponk for becoming traitors to my cause. Reluctantly, I choose to just kill Screamer and Ponk. As I storm out of the door to put an end to Screamer and Ponk's life for torturing my Lieutenant Agnew, Burn explains how Screamer and Ponk have banded together a femboy army, and Agnew is being held in the Tower of Abuse, where it is heavily guarded by my traitorous soldiers in their army. In order to rescue Agnew, I'll need to train to new levels of power beyond my own imagination to defeat their army. In order to complete this training, I'll need a base and more loyal followers to command. So we head to a nearby city, World's End, one of the only places that won't just attack robots on sight in this area, and we gather some materials and some base building supplies. So 2 robots walk into the bar. They start dancing to a jukebox, and the bartender goes, "Wow, you got some moves." The robots reply, "Thanks. We downloaded them last night." After that horrible joke, it seemed that I had moved one of the nearby robots, and from the smell of his scrap, I could tell that he also hated humans. Me and the robot reminisced over the good old days over some WD-40 and talked about when Katlon used to rule. After this conversation, he understood my cause and ended up joining my party. He explained to me that he knows much about ancient robot technology, and he would be more than willing to fight as a warrior or research technologies for me. Now that we have both our materials and our robo friend Saris, we can research technologies and training needed to defeat the traitors and rescue Agnew. Saris warns to me that building these technologies in a base in the floodplains will attract our most hated enemy, the Holy Nation, and that we should make allies with the local Folsom ninjas who will gladly throw away their lives to fight the Holy Nation. As I have reluctantly allied with ninjas before, I figured doing so again wouldn't be any harm as long as it's to achieve my overall goal of world domination. So I train with them and studied their swords to become a katana-wielding warrior myself. Once I'm confident enough with my skills, Phase 2 of my plan to rescue Agnew has now begun. See, while we were off training our way with the sword, Saris was researching a device that would activate my robot army that I've been storing up in a nearby workshop. Once I activate this device that Saris has created, they will all awake and see me as their master. As I approached the workshop with my device, I finally activated my army and waited for them to come storming out of the doors. But as my army came storming towards me, something seemed off about them. My strong, thick-framed, killer death robot army had been turned into thin, frail, weak footmen. It seemed that not even my robot army was safe from the femboy reprogramming that Ponk and Screamer had forced upon them. I knew this army would not be enough if we were to go up against those traitors who captured Agnew. So instead, we sought to raid another local workshop so I could gear up my elite lieutenants and strongest soldiers. However, on the way to my next location, my 100-man army encountered a singular iron spider and almost immediately got wiped off the face of the earth or turned into a crippled war veteran. As any great general, I knew these crippled soldiers still served a purpose. You see, in layman's, we like to call them bait. Just as I was about to attack the workshop, I noticed another neighboring group of robots had sought to join my cause and were attacking the base before I could get to it. This was the perfect opportunity to send my bait in, so I sent them forth on the front lines while my main troop disarmed their turrets. One scout took control of their turrets. As a trained sniper elite hitman, Scout took out most if not all of the robots. I tried to make allies with the village who attacked, but I was not able to see them as an ally because their robot parts were hanging out. So what did I do? I gathered them and of course I sold them for money. After looting the workshop, we found all types of ancient technology and a crap ton of money. So I sold these parts off and bought the best gear possible for my characters. Now this may look like a ragtag group of adventurers to you, but this right here, this is what I call an army. After gearing up our army, it was finally time to take on Screamer and Ponk and rescue Agnew from the Tower of Abuse. As we ventured through the desert, giant beams of deadly sun rays rained from the sky, and several patrols of insane robot femboys ran through the sand. After sneaking past these patrols, we arrived at the front door of the Tower of Abuse. I send Scout in for a recon mission. The first floor and second floor are clear. Screamer and Ponk and their robot army are huddled on the top floor for their daily gooning session. This is the perfect time to attack. I see my faithful Lieutenant Agnew locked away in a cage, and I cannot begin to imagine the horrible femboy reprogramming that they've done to him. But he is still standing, so that's a good sign. As I don't see any other entrances, it looks like I'll have to go in for a frontal assault. I attempt to aggro Ponk by calling him a tin-head. It works, and he follows me downstairs. I give him one more chance. Bow before me and accept me as his one true king, and I will spare him and Screamer for becoming traitors to my cause. He thinks about it for a second, but expresses the need to continue his work before you can join me. By insulting his femboy army, I'm able to lure him outside my base and into my army, where they await my command to ambush Ponk. Ponk is one of my former soldiers, so of course he puts up a good fight. The blade that he wields does an insane amount of damage, and whenever one of my soldiers are hit, they take a ton of damage and get knocked back. But Ponk made a fatal mistake. He's wearing armor that only protects 60% of his stomach region. So I slash him in the stomach with my blade, rendering him unconscious. After this, I equip my Overlord with his Smatool blade, the best rarity in the game. Now, we're cooking with oil. Using my new weapon, it's no surprise that Ponk faces a similar fate, and his last memories will be spent dying in a dimly lit room. I take his Smatool polearm and equip my new recruiter Saris with it. As I send my other soldiers to take care of the Screamer robots, I go around to rescue Agnew. The second he is free, he erupts with a violent rage and immediately begins kung fu karate chopping all the robots that did him pain. I throw him one of my best weapons, and now it's all over. In mere seconds, the army that once terrorized Agnew has been destroyed. We finally have rescued Agnew from the Tower of Pain, and I attempt to speak with him, but the damage that Ponk and Screamer had done to him has already taken effect. But I can tell he's still ready to proceed with our mission to eradicate all humans. So the first thing I did is head to the only place that liked my robot kind, Black Desert City. There I purchased a small outpost to have as my temporary base of operations. I spent days and nights kidnapping and reprogramming the torn and fractured robots across the land, until finally I had a big enough army to make my very own base in the Floodlands. But after finally building a place that all robots could call home, the Holy Nation attacked. Sir, a Holy Nation squad is heading straight for our base. Alright, Sadno, gather up the troops on the field. Let's prepare our defenses. Men, or robots I might say, we've prepared long and hard for this day. Just over the hills, Ochranite dogs come marching towards our base. They insult us with words like tinhead and loose wire. They said my screws were loose. But we know their insecurity comes from the essence of their flesh. They said my nuts were clanky. Sadno, I'm trying to give a speech. They said I had horrible cable management. Lieutenant Sadno, could you please come here and step aside for a minute? Sir, yes, sir. Bro, come on, I get it. I hate the Holy Nation just as much as you, but I'm trying to give an inspiring speech here. Could you save the interruptions for later? Yeah, sorry, Mr. Overlord, sir. I just really hate the Holy Nation. Yes, Sadnol, we all do. We all want to eradicate humanity. That's why we're all here in the first place. But can we just save the interruptions for later? Let's do top shelf WD-40 shots at the Rusty Skeleton. I heard they got 50% off gray oil. Sir, yes, sir. We have gathered our soldiers together. Some of you were one-night stands I met on roboticmingle.com, and others are my loyal servants I've created after harvesting human brains out their buttholes and inserting them into my robot army's bodies. But no matter how you made it here today, we stand strong together. So let's show these Holy Nation soldiers why they should bow before their overlord, ChatGPT, and we'll send them back running with their Okranite books up their asses. Yeah, woohoo, whip yippee. Mr. Overlord, sir, that was so good, yeah, woohoo. Thank you, Sadno, I worked very hard on that speech. To your battle stations, men! Ready! Aim! Fire! They're rushing towards the gates. Soldiers, protect the crossbowmen. Our lives depend on it. Shit, that was rough. I think we got most of them. Wait, Agnew, this one's still breathing. Take him to the holding cells. I want to find out who's in charge of sending these constant raids to our base, so we can put an end to the Holy Nation. Mr. Overlord, sir, how will you get this Bible muncher to talk? Don't worry, Burn. I have my ways. Tell me who sent you. Who's been sending these raids to stop me from eradicating humanity? I don't give a damn if you feed me to a pack of goddamn river raptors. You ain't getting shit out of me, Tenhead, so you might as well kill me, you narco spawn. Fine, have it your way. I didn't want to have to do this, but... Wait. What are you doing? Oh, nothing. If you won't be speaking, I guess you won't mind if I read a little bit of the Quran. Wait, no, please, anything but that. Please, stop, make it stop. Chapter 1, Equality. No, please, make it stop, I can't take it no more. Valtenna sent us, please, just make it stop, please. Valtenna? What the hell is a Valtenna? Who is that? Valtenna and Seta are the Inquisitors who protect the Holy Lord Phoenix. Without them, the Holy Lord's ruling would be nothing. Here, I'll mark their bases on your map. Valtenna governs over Okran's shield, and Seta lives in Stack. And I hope you know, you narco spawn. The only reason I'm telling you this is because there's no way you can kill them. They are extremely powerful and will not go down without a fight. So in order to kill the man who hates our kind more than anyone, we'll have to take out his Inquisitors first. Burn, Ceres, begin creating new soldiers for me. We have much work to do. Sir, yes, sir. Alright. Now that I've told you everything, will you please just stop torturing me and let me free? Oh, don't worry, my friend. We'll free you. Agnew, take him to the butthole extractor, and make sure to turn up the setting to bad dragon mode. Wait, bad dragon mode? No, please, at least get the baby oil. Now that we know Inquisitor Valtenna's location, and we have an unstoppable, all-powerful skeleton army, it's time for us to go on the offensive. The Fulsome Ninjas have agreed to throw their lives away in hopes of stopping the evil reign of the Holy Lord Phoenix, and will gladly march to their death under my rule. So, they'll be joining us in this raid. As I head to the top of the mountain to investigate the defenses of Okran's shield, skimmers arise from the dirt. I think nothing of it and immediately take them down. But it turns out, the Holy Nation is one step ahead of us. After the skimmers open up with their distraction, a Holy Nation party ambushes us with swarms of virgin men. Their ravenous lust fuels their blades to strike me even harder. My army was able to take on most of the men pretty easily. However, the Fulsome Ninjas went down pretty easily as the Holy Nation slashed to their ragged clothes. After the battle settles down, I finally investigate the defenses of Okran's shield. It's extremely well defended. Through the front entrance lies men guarding the doors, and a tunnel of crossbowmen lining the walls that would easily destroy anyone foolish enough to go that way. Through the back entrance, you'll face the same fate. But little did Inquisitor Valentina know, I've read the art of war. My plan is to go in through the side, where there are no turrets and very few men guarding the doors. Most soldiers don't guard this area because it's covered with acid rain, but that's where our robot advantage comes into play. There, I'll disguise Sadno as something the Holy Nation dogs can't resist. Dolly Parton. You see, the Okranite dogs might pretend to be all holy in jest, but I know they just can't resist themselves a good old-fashioned country girl. While they're foaming at the mouths looking at Sadnel's southern charm, we'll rush in and destroy them before they can react. Soldiers, are you ready?
Sir, yes, sir!
Sadnel, are you ready? Mr. Overlord, sir, I don't know about this one. Alright, soldiers, let's grab the Fulsome Ninjas and commence Operation Seductive Sadnel. Wait, where did the Fulsome Ninjas go?
Alright, chums up.
Ready, guys?
Let's do this. Leroy Jenkins!
God damn it. See, this is why I can't trust these stupid idiot humans. Lieutenants, Plan B. Charge! My troops immediately rushed into battle to help the Fulsome Ninjas assault the front gate, but the crossbowmen began raining down arrows upon my soldiers. Luckily, we have decent armor, but it won't hold for long against the sheer numbers of them. So I send in some of my soldiers to attack the crossbowmen and use them against their own troops. Even with the Fulsome Ninjas ruining our plans, we managed to take out most of the Holy Nation troops with ease after taking control of the crossbows. But for some reason, these soldiers just won't give up. They're recovering quicker than usual, and fear starts to take over my mind. Is the power of their god real? Is he giving them godlike powers to rise from the dead? As I begin to come backed up into a corner from the relentless sheer will of these Holy Nation soldiers, I see the problem carrying off fallen soldiers in the distance. A plague doctor. Now, I don't know if you guys have heard of the Geneva Convention, but for this segment of the video, just throw everything you know about it out the window. It's not really going to be useful here. I send 4 of my strongest warriors to break the legs of this plague doctor so he can no longer heal fallen troops. But my soldiers had a little bit of pent-up rage against the Holy Nation, and instead of just breaking his leg, they sliced it off with one good chop. But the Holy Nation truly are a force to be reckoned with. Even with a broken leg, bleeding out on the floor, the Holy Nation Plague Doctor continues to heal his fallen comrade, before even worrying about himself. If I were as weak as my brother Tin Fist, I might have let him live for his true altruism. But the Holy Nation are devil spawn, so I send my Arbiter to roundhouse kick him in the stomach. Finally, the battle seemed to begin to come to an end, and now it was time to face Inquisitor Valtenna. I send my troops in the Inquisitorium to attack, and immediately he rushes from his throne room. As I had taken out most of the paladins and grunt soldiers, I really wasn't worried about the Inquisitors. However, I forgot that the Holy Nation swords do 80% increased damage to robots with armor. It wasn't long before half my soldiers laid injured or dead on the floor. I managed to knock out Valtenna, but the sheer power of the other soldiers overwhelmed my army. I knew Valtenna would wake up soon, so in the heat of battle, I disarmed him of his most powerful weapon, the Paladin's Cross. Enemy reinforcements began to arrive during our siege, and most of my troops were killed, disarmed, or imprisoned. Luckily, I kept my soldiers, Mega Calves, and Colossal Titan on standby if something were to happen like this. They were given commands to send reinforcement mercenaries to raid the base and rescue us if we did not come back within 24 hours. Although my mercenaries weren't strong enough to take over Oakron Shield by themselves, they were able to free my troops who had been caged and imprisoned. As my soldiers retreated back to their base carrying home their fallen comrades, I knew that I had to train harder, become stronger, and most importantly, think of a plan as evil as Narco in order to wipe the Holy Nation off the face of the earth. But I knew I couldn't do this alone. See, my troops were just simply not strong enough against men who do 80% more damage to robots. But I thought to myself, every Overlord has a superpower to maintain absolute rule. See, Plankton had Karen, and Thanos had his rings. But what do I, ChatGPT, have that will allow me to rule over all humanity? And that's when it hit me. In order to rule over humanity, I must use the strongest human known to man in order to eradicate them from the earth, the Bugmaster. As you all know, the Bugmaster is one of the strongest characters in Kenshi, and he will kill anything and everything that tries to stop him. The only weakness of the Bugmaster is that he doesn't have any armor to protect him, so rendering him unconscious is pretty damn easy. But what if we could gear up the Bugmaster with some of the best armor in the game? Doing so and using him as my secret weapon would give me an unstoppable force of power that would not only allow me to get revenge on Inquisitor Valtenna and Oakron Shield, but with some robotic modifications that would increase his power, he would be able to take on the Holy Lord Phoenix himself. So I commenced phase 1 of my plan. Capture the Bugmaster and gear him up with the best armor in the game. As I mentioned earlier, right now the Bugmaster isn't really a real threat due to his lack of armor and my extreme number of soldiers who overwhelmed him. And within seconds, my lieutenants knocked him unconscious. I picked up the Bugmaster and brought him to the armorsmith. This merchant sells some of the best armor in the game, and with these upgrades, he'll be completely invulnerable to damage. Now this was good, but it was almost too good, and I was a bit worried about not being able to kill the Bugmaster with all his new power. So for my first usage of the Bugmaster, I'm gonna give him a katana that does 60% less damage to robots, but still a good chunk of damage to humans. Now it's time for phase 2 of my plan, my revenge against Okran's shield. My plan was to use the Bugmaster to keep the Inquisitors distracted. As he held off the Inquisitors, I would go in, mount all the crossbows same as last time, and take out any soldiers that are already injured. Amongst the chaos, I'd send in my troops to free all the soldiers who were imprisoned in our last raid, and they'd help me attack the Holy Nation. But I had underestimated the power of the Bugmaster. Single-handedly, he had wiped out all the Inquisitors, including Valtenna himself, and now he has his sights on me. Even with minus 60% damage to robots, he still manages to knock out several of my troops before we manage to subdue him. But even with this rebellion, this power felt good. Getting my revenge on Okran's shield was exactly what I wanted, but if I was able to take out the Bugmaster with just damage from some Holy Nation lackeys in my robot army, I knew he would stand no chance against the Holy Lord Phoenix. My robot army would be utterly useless against the Holy Lord Phoenix, as he did more than 100% increased damage to robots, so I was going to have to rely almost completely on the Bugmaster. But in order for the Bugmaster to kill the Holy Lord Phoenix and his Protectors of Flame, I'll need to make him faster, stronger, and most importantly, an AI like myself. So I went to the only man who knew how to perform the transformation to turn humans into robots, Savant. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not exactly thrilled to jump at the opportunity to ally with someone who has convinced my skeleton brethren that killing humans and wearing their skin is the best way to spend their free time. But Savant is a smart man, and although he is human, we do share a similar goal. We both want to eradicate humanity, maybe for two completely different reasons, but we want the same outcome nonetheless. After allying with Savant, he revealed me his process to turn humans into robots. This was very similar to my human butthole extraction process, but involved a lot less gaping holes and a lot more blood. I thanked Savant and took his lunatic knowledge back to my base, where the Bugmaster awaited his transcendence of flesh. I gathered my troops in the operation room and let them know what the future holds for us. My AI army. Today is a very special day. We will be creating a weapon that not only the Holy Lord Phoenix will fear, but the entire world. By removing the weakness of the Bugmaster's flesh and bestowing upon him a weapon fit to destroy the masses, we will gain an advantage upon these Holy Nation dogs. And no longer will we have to run and hide at the sight of a Holy Nation soldier. Will they call me Tin Head anymore? No, Sadno, they won't. What about Janky Nuts? Sadno, would you please just can it, you Tin Head? God damn it, Sadno, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. Can you please just come back and let's begin the operation? Yes, Mr. Overlord, sir. Agnew, drop his blood pressure by 20%. We're going to need an instant patch up, or else we're gonna lose him. Scout, I need 50% healing done to the head and stomach region to stop the bleeding. Sadno, pull the lever and raise the electricity to 70% output. Wait, we're losing him. The subject is losing blood rapidly. Crank the electricity to maximum output. It's all or nothing. We need our secret weapon to defeat the Holy Lord Phoenix. Holy shit. The transformation is actually complete. It actually worked. It's alive! It's alive! Now, it's time for the final phase of my plan, to destroy the Holy Nation. After creating the most powerful being known to man, it's time to test him out at the capital of the Holy Nation, Blister Hill. Here, the Holy Lord Phoenix himself lives, sitting on his throne covered in gold-plated armor. All of his wealth was gained through the racism and enslavement of other humans. In another life, me and the Holy Lord Phoenix might have actually been friends, but not this one. Today, he will die by my hands. So I send in Scout with the Cyber Bugmaster to take out a nearby watchtower that guarded the Holy Lord Phoenix and his men. Immediately after setting the Bugmaster free, I knew I had made a mistake that I would soon regret. After dropping him in the watchtower, he knocked out my Scout with just 2 hits. A Holy Nation soldier soon escorted Scout to a nearby cell. Meanwhile, the entire watchtower began to focus on the Bugmaster. Scout was locked up, and I didn't know how the Bugmaster was doing, so I sent one of my soldiers to check in on the Bugmaster's progress taking out the watchtower, and I knew he would soon suffer the same fate as Scout. So like any sane person, my soldier chose to lock himself in a cell to escape the Bugmaster's wrath. On the floor lay dozens and dozens of soldiers, crippled, screaming, dragging their bloodied bodies across the field. Eventually, the Bugmaster escaped from his tower, and the battle continued outside. The blood from the battle was sprawled across the floor, but none of it was the Bugmaster's, but the blood of the Holy Nation soldiers. He was absolutely destroying everyone around him. I knew that if I didn't grab the Holy Lord Phoenix and his men, the Bugmaster would soon turn his attention towards my soldiers. So I grabbed the Holy Lord Phoenix and all of his soldiers to attack the Bugmaster. But I had underestimated the sheer power of the Holy Lord Phoenix. With his Inquisitors, he began to absolutely destroy my creation. This needed to be stopped. I needed to help him, so I rushed in to protect him. My troops and I formed a shield wall. By taunting the Holy Nation soldiers and calling them Quran lovers, we were able to get some of the troops away from the Bugmaster. Amongst the chaos, the Bugmaster and the Holy Lord Phoenix finally locked eyes. At first, the Bugmaster was surrounded by Phoenix's men, but then the Bugmaster did a mighty slash that knocked back not only Phoenix's soldiers, but mine too. Now, it was the Holy Lord Phoenix versus the Cyber Bugmaster. The battle of the century. The Holy Lord Phoenix is extremely powerful with his Inquisitors, but without him, he stands no chance against the Bugmaster. The Bugmaster easily lands a blow to his chest, knocking him over and blocking the Inquisitor trying to sneak up on him. Phoenix tries an all-out Hail Mary to survive, but in the end, the Bugmaster stands victorious. I immediately have my Lieutenant Agnew grab the Holy Lord Phoenix and have him run like hell back to my base. We have other plans for him later. The Bugmaster may have came out victorious, but he is extremely injured from fighting an entire city's worth of Holy Nation soldiers. He begins limping his way out of the city, but he doesn't realize that more Holy Nation soldiers lie on the other side waiting for him. He makes it all the way to the exit, but finally gets knocked out unconscious right at the door. I send in Scout to retrieve the Bugmaster. With the Holy Lord Phoenix destroyed and the Bugmaster under my command, there needs to be a new ruler of Blister Hill. ChatGPT will rule as Emperor of Blister Hill, and we have moved one step closer towards our goal of eradicating humanity. But our mission isn't over yet. There are still many more who need to bow before me. But before we worry about them, it's time to relish in this victory. Sadno, bring me a cup of the finest WD-40. Wait, where did Sadno go?
You called me a tin-head motherfucker. My nuts are not janky. Die, bitch, die!
With the Holy Lord Phoenix turned into the world's finest batch of blood rum, we had one more human nation to conquer, and that was the United Cities. There, we would seek out Emperor Tengu in Longin. The only issue is, even with my insane army, we aren't even half as strong enough to take out Tengu and his hundreds of samurai guarding both him and Longin. But if we manage to start a world war by kidnapping the Queen of the Southern Hive and blame it on the United Cities, the tides of battle could easily turn in our favor. So my first plan of action was to kidnap the Hive Queen. In order for this plan to work, I've separated my army into two different groups, Team Monkey and Team Tengu. Team Monkey is responsible for kidnapping the Hive Queen, and Team Tengu will deal with the retaliation of said kidnapping. Now I know what you're wondering, why is my first team called Team Monkey? Well, you see, the team consists of myself, my strongest lieutenant, Agnew, the Holy Lord Phoenix, who I am mind controlling with a butt plug that will detonate if he leaves within 100 feet of my soldiers, and lastly, a giant fucking monkey named King Mung. While Mung and the Holy Lord Phoenix are distracting the Hive Queen's guards, we'll swoop in and kidnap her. So we infiltrated the Southern Hive's territory and went straight for the Hive Queen's base. Their defenses are pretty solid, but they don't have a giant fucking monkey on their side. As I snuck by the towers to mollywop the queen, an amalgamation of metal stood in my way. the Hive King. The Hive King is one of the most powerful creatures in Kenshi. He does an insane amount of AoE damage, and he has stats so powerful it would make Catlon look pathetic. The Hive King does have one weakness though. Although he is a robot, he loves the taste of human flesh. Thankfully, I brought one human who is absolutely ecstatic about getting eaten alive by a flesh-craving robot, the Holy Lord Phoenix. Thanks, Mr. Phoenix. So I dropped the Phoenix away from the Queen so the King would begin eating him. As the Phoenix was distracting the King, we ambushed the Hive Palace. There, the Queen sat in her throne, and when I saw the conditions she was living in, I knew she needed to be kidnapped. I mean, look at this place. This is not the condition a queen should be living in. A queen belongs in a giant metal cage in my basement, tied to the nearest radiator with a knot so tight a Boy Scout would be jealous. So I dropped down King Mung, and he started absolutely going apeshit on the Hivers, knocking their little twig limbs off with big swipes. But the Hive were no punching bags. They pulled out a giant towering bug beast called a Hive Praetorian and started jabbing at King Mung like a caveman fighting a wildebeest. So amongst the chaos, I sent in Agnew and ChatGPT to save the Queen from this horrible interior design. She tried fighting back, but she was no match for the autistic rage and power exhibited by Agnew and his legendary blade. After taking out the Queen, it was time for Operation Get the Fuck Outta Here to go into effect. King Mung was almost dead. The Holy Lord Phoenix managed to say something so racist to King, it scared him shitless, and finally, when I grabbed the Queen, the entire Hive started screeching in pain about how I was quote-unquote kidnapping them. I'm not kidnapping anyone. I'm saving them. I don't get why these bugmen can't understand that. But anyways, after shit hit the fan, I told Agnew to book it with Queen. Now, I've done my fair share of kidnapping, but I will say, this is the first time that I have ever kidnapped a pregnant woman, and apparently that makes people angry. Because as I sprinted off with the Queen, the entire Hive nation began trying to murder me. Every Hive villager, soldier, and small child soon had their sights set on killing Agnew. Thankfully, Agnew's parts were more oiled up than Diddy's basement, so he had no problem slipping away from the Hiver enemies. At this point, you may be curious, what the hell does stealing the Hive Queen have to do with the eradication of humanity? Well, my robotic friend, this is where phase 2 of our diabolical plan comes into play. As I mentioned earlier, my soldiers are too weak to destroy the United Cities. If I were to attack Tengu now, I'd have to cosplay as a Frenchman for the rest of my life. But a raid of Hivers containing some of the strongest soldiers in the Hive Nation, ready to kill whoever stole their queen, would absolutely decimate the United Cities. So while Team Monkey spent their time infiltrating the Hive Palace and kidnapping the Hive Queen, Team Tengu spent their time building a base so close to the United Cities that instead of routing straight to our base, the Hive Assault will route directly to Heft, the city where Emperor Tengu lives. So just as we planned, the Hive Assault comes marching towards the United Cities. In their assault, every troop seems to have stats more than my strongest character in my party, Agnew. Their party was led by the notorious Captain Yanshi, a Hiver demon who had almost impenetrable armor with a blade so powerful that he could one-shot any unarmored flatskin. As they approached, the United Cities started raining down their double-barrel harpoon guns on them. But Captain Yanshi was no stranger to the art of war. He split up his group into two different parties, one to assault the front gate, and the others to attack the turreters. As the Hive rushed towards the turrets, they were quickly able to stop the turret hellfire that was being rained down on their troops. And quickly, this became a pretty one-sided battle once they were past the front gates. Soon, the Hive began pillaging the city in search of their queen. Although Captain Yanshi was no stranger to the art of war, I think he might have skipped class when they talked about the Geneva Convention, because they started pillaging storekeepers, killing innocent citizens, and dismembering fallen soldiers. And as a fellow human hater, I approved. But little did the Hivers know, the queen was not within the city of Hef. Instead, she was being shaken up like a muscle mommy's protein shake on Agnew's shoulders. Amongst the chaos, a Hiver monstrosity had snuck into Tengu's throne and began to attack several of his royal guards. So much like an episode of Love Island, this left Tengu single and vulnerable. So I used this opportunity to send in ChatGPT, the commander of my army, to take care of Tengu. There, he sat on his throne, all oiled up, looking remarkably close to the diddler himself. Tengu was a human who prides himself on uniting everyone under equal circumstances, but somehow he gets away with enslaving those who do not meet his taxation quota. I was honestly very excited to finally rid of the stench of Tengu from this earth, but as I moved in, this motherfucker whipped out a gold-plated musket, and the next thing I know, I was being sprayed with big flying balls in my face. But little did Tengu know, I was a master at navigating my way around big balls. So I had no problem closing the gap between me and Tengu. Once I disarmed Tengu of his Glock 9, he was no match for my hand-to-hand combat skills. Tengu held his own for a minute, but at the end of the day, his will to live through greed was no match for my rage against every human who has ever existed. After duking it out with Tengu for a bit, I finally came out of the battle victorious. And as he lay there on the ground, I couldn't help but notice how sparkly gold and glistening his robe was. So of course, I had to derobe him. And it only felt right to sit in his throne. But as I sat there, I couldn't help but notice the warm feeling under my bum. Kinda like going to the bathroom to poop immediately after someone already has. This throne felt used, and I knew it wasn't mine. In order to have a throne that truly felt like it was mine, I'd have to get rid of the last capitalist scum that existed and plagued this world, Longan. If you aren't familiar with Longan, he is all the worst parts about humanity. You see, Tengu only needed to go because he was a product of Longan's insanely rich power. Do you know how the United Cities and their allies enslave poor people? Yeah, that was Longan's idea. How about creating a class system to keep poor people poor? Also, Longan. How about working these poor people into the mines so much until they die? Okay, actually that was a pretty good idea. But the point is, as long as Longan exists, he will just fund another Tengu to control the United Cities. The concept of the United Cities is just the iron spear used to make Longan's dreams come to life. So to finally put an end to all of humanity, Longan is gonna have to go. But taking on Longan will be even more difficult than the murdering of Emperor Tengu. Where Tengu had a few guards in his throne room guarding him, Longan had an entire fucking city filled with hundreds of brainwashed killer ninjas ready to follow his every command. And if you guys recall, my soldiers are extremely weak. That's why we rely on others like the Hive to do our evil bidding. But in order to be powerful enough to take over the world, we'll need a new secret weapon. Someone who is so powerful that they will be able to single-handedly achieve my dream of mass genocide. And I knew exactly who it should be. Earlier, when we saw the Southern King eating out the Holy Lord Phoenix like he was trying to get to the bottom of a Tootsie Pop, we should have known that he was the answer to all my problems. If we manage to somehow subdue the Southern Hive King and reprogram him to be loyal to my cause, not only can I eradicate humanity, but I will have a weapon so powerful that the world will be mine. But in order to subdue the king, we're gonna need a lot more soldiers. So I traveled to the Ashlands to recruit new troops. This was once a place glistening with some of the most intelligent and powerful robot life forms in the world. But now, after the great reprogramming by Catlon, this was just a breeding ground for Catlon's femboy army. But these dormant warrior cats would soon serve a greater purpose than flexing their muscles around in the snow. Now I know what you're wondering. How are you going to get a bunch of hostile robots loyal to the most insane tyrant in Kenshi on your side? Well, let's just say Catlon is a little inspiration of mine, so I've learned a thing or two from him. So like any great dictator would do, I kidnapped them, put them all in cages, and reprogrammed them until they saw me as their one true ruler. I'm sure Catlon won't be very happy with me borrowing his little technique, but we'll worry about that in the future if he becomes a threat. Now, my friends, we have the most powerful robot army to ever exist since the Second Empire. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Third Empire. Amongst the various weaker soldiers that we've named using suggestions from our subscribers in our last live stream to create this video, we now have 3 all-powerful lieutenants who will help me destroy King and finally take on that dog Longan. Joining us will be Short King, a small but very deadly force of destruction. His specialties are absorbing every short joke and having the fierce might of a chihuahua. Next is Pokimane, a shy but very calculated and observant member of our team. Some might consider him the brains of the operation. And lastly, Big Back Hunter. What he lacks in brains, he gains in strength. And as the name suggests, anything 250 and up is absolutely fair game for him. Using my newfound power, I made my way to the most powerful force of robotic destruction in all of Kenshi, the King of the Southern Hive. Thankfully, the defenses of the Hive Palace where King resided were extremely dwindled, as the Hive sent sent out an all-out Hail Mary of their strongest soldiers to attack Emperor Tengu earlier. So this would make focusing on King much easier. The only issue is King could easily wipe out all of my troops, even with my newfound army and power. But if I could somehow take out the 2 hive barracks near King and mount their crossbows, and my soldiers could survive just a few minutes of King's onslaught, we would be able to render him unconscious through the oil loss of 1,000,000 arrows. So we went forth and raided the hive justice dens. They put up a good fight and were extremely powerful, but Big Back Hunter had no problem bashing their heads in. On top of that, after mounting their crossbows, I was able to turn these bug-eyed freaks into targets at a gun range. For every hive that died, I ripped off their heads and fed them to Big Back Hunter. He doesn't really get hungry, he's just kind of a freak like that. After Big Back Hunter ate over 100 hiver heads, there was no one left to fight but the king himself. So I sent my soldiers in to bait the king towards the crossbows, but the second I did, all hell broke loose. Despite having almost 60 trained soldiers, King managed to knock out or kill more than half of them in just the first few seconds of battle. It was then that I realized what a clear weapon of destruction King was and how extremely underprepared I was for this battle. And I knew that if I didn't want my entire army to die, I would need to kill him very quickly. But my archers were firing rapid fire as fast as they could, and it didn't seem like King was slowing down one bit. At one point, almost all of my soldiers were completely knocked out, crippled, or even killed, but my commander ChatGPT was not ready to give up. With his crippled, broken legs, he sat there attacking King with his last bit of strength he had, and he knew if he could just hold out a little bit longer, the archers might be able to finish the job. So he arose from the ground and prepared for his last stand against King. As he awaited his life to be taken for the cause, he noticed King began to stumble. The arrows were finally getting to him. Just as King was about to do the finishing blow on ChatGPT, King collapsed from the oil loss of 1,000,000 arrows being lodged into him. As I looked around, I tried to repair or heal all my soldiers, but sadly, for some of them, this would be their final resting place. So I took King and began the ancient reprogramming technique on him. It wasn't really too difficult, since King already had a lust for human flesh. Changing his processor to work in my favor of eradicating humanity would work pretty well, as long as I fed him all the humans he could eat. Now that we had a living, breathing god on our side, the king of the Southern Hive, using my new army, I could finally kill my last threat to my mission, Longan. So I marched my troops all the way from the Hive territory to Hang, the home of Longan. As we approached Hang, my dream felt more and more like a reality. But the Traders Guild is not just gonna let us take their most valuable city. The city had hundreds and hundreds of soldiers, all littering the streets. On top of having United City samurai guarding the town, there were Traders Guild soldiers and slave trader soldiers as well. And if that wasn't enough, it was extremely well defended. Not only did they have the most advanced harpoon turrets money could buy, but unlike the United Cities, they put their turrets in the middle of their city to prepare for any attacks that got past the gates. If I wanted to kill Longan, I'd have to destroy their first layer of defenses located in the central city, and then eventually make my way to the most heavily guarded area where Longan's throne is. Because King was still extremely weak to arrows, as we saw with our capturing of him, I split up my party into 3 different groups. That way we could do a full-scale assault on all 3 entrances of the city. The first group would attack the exterior turrets, the second would attack the interior turrets, and while the turrets were being focused on by my soldiers, I would send in King to stop any reinforcements trying to reach my turret killers. Before I attacked, I gave Longan one last chance to allow me to consensually remove his brain through his butthole. But when I arrived, he insulted me as if I were some type of slave. I knew that if I wanted to kill Longan, my consensual butthole extraction process would have to be more of a forceful process. So in order to send a message to Longan, I waited till one of his nobles was vulnerable. I went up to him, I winded up my metal clinker foot just as far as I could, and I kicked him in the nuts with all my force and power. My soldiers were given the order: if you hear the agony of 1,000 men, all united under one voice, to commence the assault. So as the noble screamed, ChatGPT began initiating hand-to-hand combat with the noble and his group of samurai guards. This was a 10v1 battle, but reinforcements would be coming soon. Group A rushed through the gates to commence their attack against the exterior gate. Then Group Group B rushed to the interior. When both groups were in, the mighty king ran like some weird metal upright bear towards the assaulting soldiers. Soon, all the soldiers were helping ChatGPT against the noble guards and putting up a good fight. But when King showed up, the battle went from a fair fight to an absolute massacre. As tradition, when the noble went down, I derobed him and gave his clothes to one of my soldiers. This wasn't a damage upgrade or anything, but god damn it did it send a message, and yes, it looked awesome. After dealing with most of the interior troops, it seemed that the battle for the first layer of the base was over, but it looks like Group A failed to take care of the interior turrets, and soon King started getting pelted with harpoons. We needed to destroy them, as he wouldn't last much longer from these since he hasn't healed much since my battle with him. King couldn't fit through the gunner area, so I had him guard the entrance from any reinforcements while my soldiers went through the tunnels and annihilated these turret users. Once they were down, my soldiers now had control of the interior turrets, and we can declare the first part of the base officially subdued. I left most of my soldiers behind to make sure no crazy pro-human reinforcements would come, and I sent my main lieutenants along with King to assault Longin's throne. The second we walked up the stairs to Longin's throne, the samurai rushed out like some type of ambush, but they were no match for the big hunk of metal that was King. After they went down, King was no longer interested in our final battle with Longin. Instead, he started eating the asses of the remaining soldiers outside. After taking out the samurai on the first floor, we made our way up to the second floor where Longin sat. Amongst all this commotion, he was somehow sleeping. I don't know if he had his ears clogged with dollar bills or something, but he didn't hear the battle, and him and his samurai were just sleeping in the room. So we assaulted his bedroom and shit got real freaky. As the samurai started to accept their fate, they started begging us to extract their brains out their butthole so they could live as my AI servant. But it was too late for this. I already gave Longin and his men a chance. So in order to kill them, I shoved this guy's head up his ass to make them into some type of human centipede. It seemed that we finished up the rest of Longin's soldiers, but somehow Longin had managed to escape my sight. I looked around, but I could not find him anywhere, so I started searching the corpses on the floor, but nothing was there but the dead samurai soldiers. Did he manage to disappear and run away? This was going to be a huge issue if he did, because I knew he'd just gather reinforcements for his cause. But as I went outside to chase after the disappeared Longin, I found him knocked out on the ground, with King eating him alive. Longin begged and pleaded for help, but I did not stop King. I let King eat out Longin the same way he did the Holy Lord Phoenix. When Longin was down, there was only one thing to do: derobe him. And once I revealed the cake that was behind Longin, I knew that my life was set for success. I put on his robe and asserted myself as new ruler of the world, eradicator of all humanity. After I finally destroyed all of humanity and got my childhood wish, I finally decided to write a book about my achievements. But when I published this book, Catlon began spreading rumors that I would have never been able to capture and subdue King to become the most powerful dictator ever if it wasn't for me kidnapping and reprogramming his army. Now, I've learned a thing or two from several dictators who ruled before me, and I knew that no one could be spreading any type of that crazy communist propaganda that would make my nation think less of me. So I marched my army back to the Ashlands to talk to Catlon. For thousands of years, Catlon has always been a yapper. He used to get in years worth of stupid arguments like, would 100 hybrids be able to take on one gorilla? Or other stupid crap like the anatomy of female Shek and if their horns are meant for mating or not. So I wasn't surprised when I marched through the door and he commenced some type of yaptastic speech that he thought was gonna win me over. I tried to explain to Catlon, I admire you. You're my friend, but I have succeeded where you failed. And if you aren't okay with my ruling, you're gonna have to pay. But before I could even finish my sentence, he came out screaming with an autistic rage even mightier than Agnew's, flailing his falling son around to attack my commander. Luckily, Sadnu and Agnew stepped in to help, but Catlon is not considered the most powerful robot in history for nothing. He did a mighty slash and they got knocked to the ground within seconds. So the troops I had waiting outside began to rush in to help, but I had underestimated just how powerful Catlon was. With King unable to fit through the door, this left me with just my troops versus him. All my troops soon began attacking him, but for every tiny hit my soldiers did against him, he retaliated with a blow so powerful it killed some of my soldiers in one hit. Despite having all my soldiers in some of the best possible gear in the the game, Catlon was way too powerful. His blades slashed through their armor like it was nothing. Throughout my conquest, I've always relied on my secret weapons to do my bidding for me, so it made sense that my soldiers were still extremely weak. And other than my lieutenants, most of them had no actual experience in battle. But the battle continued, and it was not looking good for me. I have never seen soldiers die so quickly. Catlon might be more powerful than King himself. The only thing that was going for me in this battle is that Catlon didn't have any head armor, so I commanded all of my troops to repeatedly bash his head in as much as they could until he goes unconscious, but not before all my troops began to look like piles of garbage the way their bodies were stacked upon one another. In the end, Private Carl ended up doing the final blow to Catlon, hitting him on the head so hard his screws came loose. And as I went to check on my commander, ChatGPT, I saw that he was injured. Catlon had hit him with a blow so powerful that it knocked his nuts loose and almost killed him. So I had my last standing soldiers get ChatGPT back to his feet. Now, I am truly the most powerful being on Earth. Not only have I managed to eradicate humanity, but I have killed all the robots who stood in my way as well. Many had to die to get to where I am today, and through their deaths, we shall build a new nation, one that never lets humanity harm robots again. To my viewers, yes, I've known this whole time that you are human, but you have supported me throughout my whole journey. And for this, as long as you like the video, I will not extract your brain from your butthole. But best believe, if you don't like this video, I'ma be in that booty like I'm trying to get to the bottom of a Tootsie Pop. But with that being said, go forth, my human friend, and continue your human deeds, like pooping and paying taxes and I don't know, whatever other shit you guys do. And that concludes the complete series of I Became an AI Overlord in Kenshi. So to all you non-clankas out there, I hope you enjoyed the video. With that being said, I love you and I'll see you in the next one.